This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access VPN. During the 1920s and 30s, especially due to Prohibition and the Great Depression, America had no shortage of criminal outlaws. Many of those villains became folk heroes, modern-day Robin Hoods, where robbing banks was seen as striking back at the financial institutions that took people's money. And decades after their criminal rampages and deaths, nearly all of them have become household names. Bonnie and Clyde are perhaps the most famous. The legendary duo spawned urban legends and even films based upon their lives, such as the 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde, which starred Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty in the title roles. There is also a 2011 Broadway musical and a 2013 made-for-TV miniseries starring Holliday Grainger as Bonnie and Emile Hirsch as Clyde. Netflix even commissioned a film based upon the duo, focusing upon the authorities who were tracking them down, with actors Kevin Costner, Woody Harrelson, and Kathy Bates being a few of those talents. Who were Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow? What started them on a life of crime? Why did they become famous? What was the real story behind their demise? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Clyde Chestnut Barrow was born on March 24, 1909, the fifth of 7 children, into a poor farming family in Tellico, Texas. The family farm failed during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl drought, and they moved to Dallas in 1922. Clyde was quite talented and learned to play guitar and saxophone, hoping to become a musician, but he quit going to school at the age of 16. Being small in stature, he was often bullied and never really developed close friendships. Clyde's older brother, Buck, was already an established petty criminal and brought Clyde into a life of crime, beginning with petty theft, then later stealing cars, moving up to armed robbery. At the age of 20, Clyde was already a fugitive from the law along with his brother Buck, and he was first arrested for auto theft in 1926, and both were wanted men by law enforcement. In January 1930, Clyde met 19-year-old waitress Bonnie Parker through a mutual friend during a quick meal at a diner. The fatal attraction did not last long, as Clyde was arrested on burglary charges in Waco. Bonnie Elizabeth Parker was born in 1910 in Rowena, Texas, the second of 3 children. Her father, Charles Robert Parker, was a bricklayer who died when Bonnie was a child. Her mother, Emma, then took the family to live with her parents in West Dallas, where she found work as a seamstress. Bonnie met and married Roy Thornton while she was a sophomore in high school, and she dropped out so they could get married. The marriage did not last long due to his being on the run from the law. Thornton went to jail in 1929, and they never met again. They never divorced, and Bonnie always wore the gold ring Thornton gave her on their wedding day. While working as a waitress and living back home with her mother and grandparents, one of her regular customers was a postal worker named Ted Heaton, who joined the Dallas County Sheriff's Department in 1932. They knew each other quite well. Ironically, Heaton would be a part of the task force hunting Bonnie and Clyde down and becoming involved in the final shootout later that killed both fugitives. Since we're talking about criminals, let me tell you of a way to hide your IP address from hackers. I use Private Internet Access, the world's most transparent VPN provider with over 30 million downloads. Private Internet Access hides your IP address and encrypts your internet connection. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of hackers, internet service providers, network administrators, and government censors. Streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and more have different library options based on where you are located, and some shows cannot be accessed if you are not located in the region. Private Internet Access VPN helps you overcome these restrictions by giving you the option of changing your IP, allowing you to gain access to websites and services that are only available in these locations, such as the submarine TV series Das Boot, only available in Germany and Switzerland. Well, not anymore. Just click on Germany or Switzerland on PIA and you're good to go. That's why I use Private Internet Access. Private Internet Access is available for all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, and many more, and you can use one Private Internet Access subscription to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. So, click on this now and get 83% off on Private Internet Access. That's just $2.03 a month. And you also get 4 extra months completely free, giving you access to content worldwide and unlimited bandwidth. You also get a 30-day money-back guarantee. While awaiting trial on the burglary charge, Clyde Barrow escaped using a revolver slipped to him by Bonnie during a visit, and he fled north, but was captured a week later in Middletown, Ohio. Barrow was found guilty of the burglary and escape and sentenced to 14 years at hard labor at Eastham Prison Farm. Eastham was notorious for human rights abuses. As Texas Monthly reported, prisoners were often forced to sit on a barrel for hours at a time, their handcuffed hands affixed to a pipe above their heads. Guards routinely beat the prisoners, and one guard had a habit of shooting prisoners and then claiming they were trying to escape. Those who lived would face grueling hours of hard labor. Clyde Barrow refused to do hard labor, so he had another prisoner cut off 2 toes from his left foot with an axe. Barrow had a rough time as he was repeatedly beaten and raped by his cellmate, a professional criminal named Big Ed Crowder, a much larger man and a sexual predator. And that was when Clyde committed his first killing. Clyde Barrow managed to ambush Crowder and beat him in the head, crushing his skull and killing him with a lead pipe in 1931. Some called it murder, others self-defense, but we let you decide. But another inmate, already doing life without parole, apparently having his own issues with Crowder, took responsibility for the murder, and Barrow was released on parole early without being tied to the crime. The reason for his early release was that Clyde's mother had already convinced the judge in his case to grant him parole, and he was released in February 1932. But Clyde knew nothing about his mother's intervention until after his release. Barrow's murder of Crowder only came out many years later, when Clyde's friend Ralph Fultz revealed it in a series of interviews. Clyde Barrow only gained momentum from there. Ralph Fultz later said that Barrow went from a schoolboy to a rattlesnake during his incarceration. After his release from prison, Clyde joined Bonnie and made a brief effort to go straight, working at a Dallas glass company. But when the police continued to harass him, causing him to lose his job, Clyde gave up. Seeing no benefit in going straight, he formed a small gang, including his brother Buck, recently out of prison himself, and Buck's wife, Blanche, as well as Ray Hamilton and W.D. Jones, a childhood friend of both Clyde and Buck. They robbed gas stations, restaurants, and small-town banks, mostly in Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Missouri. Clyde killed a police officer and store owner during one robbery in Missouri, joining the FBI's most wanted list with a price on his head in several states. The Barrow gang made national headlines after several more bank robberies and murders, including several law enforcement officers, and their exploits continued to hold the public's fascination for the next 2 years. But the gang was careless, because in December 1932, the FBI learned of an abandoned automobile in Michigan that had been stolen in Oklahoma, and evidence in the car was linked directly to Bonnie Parker. Another search in Oklahoma of a second stolen car linked both automobiles to Barrow and Parker. The evidence was a prescription bottle that had been filled for Barrow's aunt that was left in the car, which led the FBI to issue a warrant against Bonnie and Clyde on 2 charges of interstate transportation of stolen automobiles on May 20, 1933. Deciding to maintain a low profile, Clyde and Bonnie, along with gang member W.D. Jones, lived briefly with Clyde's brother Buck and his wife Blanche at 3347.5 Oak Ridge Drive in Joplin, Missouri. But when neighbors grew suspicious, believing them to be bootleggers, the police were notified, and they sent 5 men in 2 cars on April 13th to the address. Clyde, Buck, and Jones opened fire, killing Detective Harry L. McGinnis and Constable J. W. Harriman. Parker fired a Browning automatic rifle at the police as the others escaped. Bonnie Parker then got into the car with the others, and they picked up Blanche running down the street as she was chasing her frightened dog. The surviving officers later testified that they had fired only 14 rounds in the conflict. 1 hit Jones on the side, 1 struck Clyde but was deflected by his suit coat button, and 1 grazed Buck after ricocheting off a wall. The police searched the property and found Buck's parole papers, more weapons, and a roll of film containing pictures that Bonnie and Clyde had taken together. The pictures were published in newspapers around the country alongside the details of their exploits. As their crime spree continued, Clyde, Bonnie, Buck, Blanche, and Jones were constantly pursued by law enforcement. In July 1933, police officers found them in Platte City, Missouri, and another shootout saw Buck seriously wounded. When police caught up with them several days later, Bonnie and Clyde escaped along with Jones, but Buck and Blanche surrendered, and Buck later died of his wounds. Blanche was sentenced to 10 years in prison. That year had been very busy for Bonnie and Clyde, as they engaged in several more shootouts with various state and local police. In November 1933, police in Dallas, Texas, attempted to capture them near Grand Prairie, but they escaped. Jones went out alone, distancing himself from Bonnie and Clyde, and was captured later that month. In January 1934, Clyde initiated an Eastham jailbreak for a former accomplice, and a prison guard was killed, while Clyde's friend and several other inmates escaped. One of these escapees was Harry Methvin, who joined the Barrow Gang. They were pursued by a posse that included former Texas Ranger Captain Frank Hamer. During their run, Methvin and Clyde killed 2 highway patrolmen on April 1, 1934, near Grapevine, Texas, and Methvin killing a constable a few days later in Commerce, Oklahoma. Bonnie, Clyde, and Henry Methvin decided to hide out at the Methvin family farm in Beanville Parish, Louisiana. But when Frank Hamer's group tracked them to the farm, Methvin's father betrayed Bonnie and Clyde in exchange for amnesty for his son. Hamer learned exactly where Bonnie and Clyde were going. The setup was planned. On May 23, 1934, Bonnie and Clyde were driving down a Louisiana back road when they saw Methvin's father standing by his broken truck. Nearby, a posse of officers from several jurisdictions led by Hamer, which included Bonnie's old friend Heaton from the diner in Dallas, were lying in wait. When Bonnie and Clyde, suspecting nothing, stopped to help the elder Methvin, the police opened fire and both of them were killed. After their deaths, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were so famous that souvenir hunters arrived at the scene of the shooting and tried to take off with locks of their hair, pieces of their clothing, shoes, and even one of Clyde's ears. Their bodies were returned to Dallas, and despite their wishes to be buried side by side, as stated in a letter signed by both of them and found on Clyde after his death, they were interred in separate cemeteries. Due to their brief life of violent crime and the dogged and very determined pursuits of them by law enforcement agencies from several states, Bonnie and Clyde have been heavily romanticized by the media. They are forever immortalized in film and literature. Today, their bullet-riddled car is on permanent display at a casino outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. So, Click on this now and get 83% off on private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month. And you also get 4 extra months completely free, giving you access to content worldwide and unlimited bandwidth. You also get a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.